Hey guys, Dennis here with Revog Games, and this is my first impressions of the new game that just came out, Sniper Elite VR. This is actually a franchise that's been around since 2005. There are like several iterations of it, mostly, the first-person shooter style. They've sold over 20 million copies total of all the different variations of this game combined. And the scores from critics and fans have been above average. They've been pretty good. They've recently kind of taken that franchise and moved it over to VR, and they've released it now on the Quest. So far, I've only played around 45 minutes to an hour of the game, but I just want to give my first impressions. So starting with the gameplay mechanics, it's interesting because it reminds me of another game that's not quite the same genre but similar, which is Half-Life Alyx. Obviously, Half-Life Alyx is my favorite VR game of all time, but they have the same kind of pickup mechanic where you're not reaching down and grabbing it and kind of like wasting time with that. They have this thing where you kind of point your hand or your controller towards an item, and then you snatch it and it'll come to you. And, in Half-Life Alyx, they kind of give a story reason for that. In this game, they don't really, just that's the way it works, and I'm fine with that because I believe that it just makes things a whole lot easier instead of having to walk to every single thing, get up real close, bend down to the ground, or reach out your hand and actually physically grab it. In these type of games, you kind of want to be able to pick up things very quickly. Also very similar to Half-Life is the way you kind of reload the guns. For ammunition, you store them on your belt, and you have a little storage area for that. You also can pick up your weapons, mostly sniper rifles, pistols, submachine guns, and you can put them behind your back to store them. It's not quite as smooth as, let's say, something like Half-Life Alyx, but it does work. There is some parts where things get a little kind of finicky, where, for example, if you are reloading your gun, sometimes as you're reloading your gun, your grab button will aim towards some object that's in the distance, like a bottle or a vase or random stuff like that, and it kind of gets in your way of actually reloading your gun. So reloading your gun is kind of cool. It's what differentiates things from your normal FPS, right? You're not pushing a button just to reload. You're not you're actually having to physically, or not physically, but virtually take your ammunition, put it in the gun, and cock it and all that stuff, so you get that sense of realism. And then another issue I had was with the grenades. So the grenades are also on your waist, but they're not as easy to access as where you store your ammo. They're off to the side, and I had trouble sometimes. There's two slots for grenades, and I had trouble trying to put in, the first one fit in fine, and the second one just kept falling to the ground. I got it eventually, but it just took several tries to do it, so it wasn't quite as smooth as I liked it to be. So now on to the main thing, which is combat. Combat is actually pretty fun. It's it's a first-person shooter, but in, virtual reality, and that comes with a lot of cool benefits. I mean, you're not going to be running into like hundreds and hundreds of enemies. You're not going to be, it's not about your twitch, your quick reaction on a controller. It's actually using your hands physically and virtually to reload your guns and actually aim down a scope and fire. And then when you're done, guess what? I mean, for the sniper rifle, you've got to, cock the gun again and then shoot. So it's not so automatic. I mean, there is a submachine gun that you can use. You can put in the clip in there, but it's all just feels a lot more like the real thing, even though it's not. One of the fun things that this game does have is the X-ray kill cam. This is kind of reminds me of Fallout in the sense of when you get a good kill, it slows everything down and it cuts from your perspective, which is, a first-person perspective, all the way to where you see your enemy getting shot, and you see an X-ray of his body, and you see his like body parts inside, and you see the bullet go through, and whether it like breaks some bones, goes through some organs, does some gruesome stuff, and it's all in slow motion, much like Fallout. I think that one's kind of cool. It's fun shooting in this game. The thing that I like about VR and first-person shooters, whether it's like Half-Life Alyx or Population 1 or anything like that, is you do have to use the sights and the scopes. you're using it more like a real gun versus, you know, in a first-person shooter, in a regular game on a console or PC game, a 2D game, not a virtual reality game. You only have the crosshairs, right? You're just aiming where the crosshairs are going to be. Your gun doesn't really actually move. But in VR, you are the one who is moving the gun around and aiming like a real gun would be. So it's not quite as polished as I'd like it to be, but it works pretty well. Now on to the graphics. Now this is the part where I feel like when you see it, you can really tell that it's on the Quest. I mean, I have a Quest 2, but at least from my eyes, it doesn't look like they've really optimized it for the Quest 2. It looks like they kind of wanted to make everything work on the original Quest, and so like whatever you're seeing on the Quest 2 isn't taking full advantage. For example, like with Star Wars Tales from Galaxy Edge, like you can see the graphics there where they're kind of blurring the line. It's not quite PC VR, but it's getting pretty close and it's blurring that line. This one, when you see it immediately, the graphics are serviceable, but you can tell that the textures are low res, the models aren't very, you know, high polygon count, the animations aren't super detailed. So you do get the feeling like, okay, this is a VR game. Look, ultimately, is it going to totally distract from the game? And what's most important is the gameplay, but I wouldn't say the graphics are anything to write home about. Now, the way they kind of tie the combat and the gameplay mechanics and everything together is they kind of have a story that ties everything together, where you're actually a grandfather in present day, and you're at your Italian home, and you're watching your kids and you're watching your grandkids play, and you're kind of reliving and thinking. There's a voiceover and you're talking about all the stuff that's happening, you know, in World War II and what you did through that, and you're kind of going through this book, and that takes you to the different levels. And so it's not like a seamless transition when you go from level to level. It doesn't have that immersion. It's more like, okay, you play this mission, it's a set mission, whether it's sniping or close combat. I mean, it's mostly sniping, but they do have some more closer combat stuff. And then they kind of take you back to this present day grandfather, and then you kind of look at your kind of stats and everything, and you decide if you want to replay that level again, or you want to go to the next level. And what I do actually find engaging about this is that, and this wouldn't work in, at least I don't think it would work that well in movies or a television show, where something like this might be a little more cheesy. Also, it would kind of interrupt the seamlessness of all the action and the combat and what's happening in World War II. But the reason why I feel like it works in Sniper Elite VR is that you get that sense of like, okay, this, because you're looking at it from a first-person perspective and not, you know, a character in a movie. Or it's you. You're that character, and it's your family. And so you're thinking about all the stuff you did in the past to make this possible, to see your kids grown up and being adults and having their own kids. And so in a way, it's almost like this motivating factor for you to see this. And like I said, it wouldn't really work as well in kind of a movie or television format, but it works really well in VR because of the immersion. So like I said, I haven't finished this game yet. I heard it's about 5 hours. I'm only a little less than an hour into it. The game costs $29.99. That's $30 for a VR game, which is kind of on the upper end for these type of games. But, you know, we'll see if it's worth it after I finish it and see, you know, how engrossing the story is, how fun the combat gets. But $30, you know, not a cheap game for VR. You know, there's only a few games that in VR that are more expensive. You know, Half-Life Alyx though was $60, but I felt like I got my money's worth. So I'll see what happens with this game. You know, a lot of people are comparing this to Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, which I haven't played yet. And the reason why I haven't played that game yet is that, you know, I heard a lot of mixed reviews. It was a $60 game, and I think recently it was on sale for $50. But I just, you know, from what I've heard about it and the mixed reviews, I'm sure that this Medal of Honor probably has much higher production values in terms of the graphics and everything. You know, obviously that's also on PC VR versus on the Quest. But I've been hearing that this game is kind of comparable in terms of the combat and whatnot, and perhaps a lot of people I've seen on reviews actually enjoy this more. So I'm gonna finish this game. Maybe Medal of Honor Above and Beyond will be cheaper later on. I'll play that. But I'll have a review for this next week. So you can follow me on Twitter at ThinkHero or Instagram Dennis.tzng. You also subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Revog. We also have a weekly podcast. You can find our podcast on Spotify and a bunch of other podcast feeds. We also have the YouTube video of that podcast every single week. I'm going to be doing more video reviews for games and all cool other stuff. So let me know what you think about this video, this game, if you got to play it, VR in general, maybe some other games you're looking forward to. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.